What happens when two of Hollywood's biggest stars decide to reveal the industry's darkest secrets? Beneath the glamour and lights lies a world shrouded in exploitation and silence, and Mel Gibson and Denzel Washington are taking a stand to expose it. From Gibson's unwavering support for Sound of Freedom to Washington's advocacy for truth in storytelling, their actions are shaking the foundations of Hollywood's carefully crafted image. What is Hollywood hiding? Who benefits from this silence? And can the truth finally disrupt an industry built on secrecy? The answers could change everything. Denzel Washington, known for his commanding performances and unwavering integrity, has recently become more vocal about the changing dynamics of Hollywood. His words aren't just critiques of the industry, but piercing observations that seem to pull back a carefully constructed curtain. In a recent interview, he likened Hollywood to a puzzle, with missing pieces hidden deliberately to protect those who wield power. This isn't just a metaphor, it's a warning, a call for society to start questioning what lies beneath the surface of the entertainment capital of the world. And he isn't alone. Mel Gibson, another powerhouse name in Hollywood, has joined Denzel in exposing the shadows. Gibson, no stranger to controversy, has been increasingly outspoken about the underbelly of the industry. His revelations touch on subjects few dare to discuss: human trafficking, exploitation of children, and a network of individuals operating with near impunity under the guise of entertainment. While Hollywood thrives on stories of good triumphing over evil, Gibson suggests that the real villains might be hiding in plain sight. At the heart of this discussion is a chilling topic: human trafficking, particularly the trafficking of children. It's a global crisis, but what makes it even more horrifying is the alleged involvement of powerful individuals, those with the resources to silence voices and bury the truth. It's a narrative no one wants to believe, but one that's increasingly difficult to ignore, especially with films like Sound of Freedom bringing these issues into mainstream conversation. The success of Sound of Freedom is a story in itself. Quietly released without the marketing power of a major studio, the film became an unexpected phenomenon, earning over $166 million at the box office. Its rise to prominence wasn't just about good storytelling, it was a reflection of the public's hunger for truth. Based on the real-life efforts of Tim Ballard, a former Homeland Security agent, the movie pulls no punches in exposing the harrowing reality of child trafficking networks. And yet, this isn't just a movie, it's a movement, a rallying cry for change that Hollywood would rather keep in the shadows. Denzel Washington's involvement in this conversation only amplifies its importance. Known for portraying characters who stand against injustice, from Malcolm X to Robert McCall in The Equalizer, Denzel has built a career on embodying moral courage. His roles aren't just entertainment, they're reflections of a personal philosophy rooted in justice and truth. His recent comments about Hollywood's moral decay are a natural extension of this ethos. They serve as a reminder that the industry isn't just about movies. It's a cultural powerhouse with the ability to shape narratives and influence minds. Meanwhile, Mel Gibson's history with Hollywood paints an equally compelling picture. After the groundbreaking success of The Passion of the Christ in 2004, Gibson faced a backlash that nearly derailed his career. Accusations of anti-Semitism and controversial remarks cast a long shadow over his reputation. Yet, through it all, he remained resolute, continuing to create and support projects that align with his personal convictions. Today, his involvement in Sound of Freedom and his ongoing efforts to expose human trafficking show a man unwilling to back down, even in the face of immense pressure. The intersection of these two forces, Washington and Gibson, creates a powerful narrative. Together, they represent not just Hollywood legends, but also symbols of resistance against an industry that thrives on controlling narratives. Their collaboration isn't just about calling out the system, it's about inspiring others to question, to dig deeper, and to refuse complacency. As the conversation unfolds, one can't help but wonder, why now? Why are these voices emerging at this moment in time? Perhaps it's the growing public awareness, fueled by the digital age, where information spreads faster than ever before. Or maybe it's a breaking point, an era where the cracks in Hollywood's polished facade can no longer be hidden. Whatever the reason, it's clear that this isn't just another controversy, it's a reckoning. The timing of Sound of Freedom couldn't have been more poignant. Released amidst a summer dominated by blockbuster hits like Barbie and Mission Impossible, the film's quiet yet profound success sent a clear message. Audiences aren't just looking for escapism, they're craving truth. This hunger for authenticity is what makes the voices of Denzel Washington and Mel Gibson so compelling. They're not just speaking out, they're challenging the status quo, urging people to look beyond the headlines and question the foundations of an industry that has long dictated cultural norms. In a world where silence is often bought and dissent is punished, their courage is a rare and necessary force. And as more stories surface, it becomes increasingly evident that this isn't just about Hollywood. It's about a global system of exploitation that thrives on secrecy. The question now isn't whether we believe these revelations, but what we're willing to do about them. Beneath the glamour and red carpets lies a world that most of us can only imagine. A world shielded by the illusion of Hollywood's allure. While many see the industry as a dream factory, producing captivating stories and cultural icons, others, like Mel Gibson, are peeling back the layers, revealing a much darker reality. It's not just about fame or fortune. It's about the unchecked power that festers behind the scenes. For Gibson, this isn't just an abstract notion. He has repeatedly spoken out about human trafficking, particularly the horrifying trade of children. His support for Sound of Freedom, a film that highlights the grim reality of child trafficking, has brought new energy to a long-ignored issue. But what makes his stance remarkable is not just his willingness to lend his voice to the cause, it's the unwavering determination to confront an industry that often thrives on silence. Sound of Freedom tells the true story of Tim Ballard, a former Homeland Security agent who left his position to rescue children from trafficking networks. The film is unapologetic in its portrayal of the horrors these children endure, and it has sparked conversations around the globe. What's even more surprising is how the film managed to achieve such monumental success despite the lack of a major studio backing. Initially shelved by Disney when it acquired Fox, the movie could have remained buried. Instead, its release became a testament to persistence, earning over $250 million globally, a feat no one could have predicted. But why would a movie tackling such an important issue face so many roadblocks? Mel Gibson and other supporters of the film suggest that it's more than just bureaucracy or marketing concerns. They hint at something far more sinister, a reluctance from powerful entities to shine a light on the issue of trafficking. It's a chilling notion, one that has fueled a wave of conspiracy theories, but also one that resonates with those who believe that silence often serves the interests of the guilty. Denzel Washington, while not directly connected to Sound of Freedom, has spoken passionately about truth and justice in his career. In interviews, he often emphasizes the responsibility of storytellers, not just to entertain, but to inform and inspire. His performances reflect these values, with roles that challenge societal norms and expose systemic flaws. Characters like Robert McCall in The Equalizer are not just fictional heroes. They are extensions of Washington's belief in fighting for the voiceless. And when an actor of his stature speaks, people listen. The intersection of art and activism is not new, but Sound of Freedom has reignited the conversation. The film's creators and supporters, including Gibson, see it as more than just a cinematic achievement. They view it as a call to action. The success of the film has proven that audiences are ready for content that confronts uncomfortable truths. It's not escapism they're seeking, it's accountability. For years, rumors about Hollywood's hidden operations have swirled. Allegations of exploitation, abuse, and power dynamics that protect the wealthy and famous at the expense of the vulnerable are not new. What makes this moment different is the growing chorus of voices demanding transparency. The digital age has democratized information, allowing whistleblowers to share their stories and audiences to connect the dots in ways that were previously unimaginable. Yet, the backlash is fierce. Those who speak out, like Mel Gibson, often find themselves ostracized, ridiculed, or accused of ulterior motives. Gibson's own career is a testament to this reality. After the monumental success of The Passion of the Christ, he faced intense scrutiny, much of it tied to his outspoken nature and controversial comments. While some criticism was justified, others saw it as an attempt to discredit a filmmaker who dared to step outside Hollywood's comfort zone. Despite these challenges, Gibson has remained resolute. His support for Sound of Freedom and his upcoming four-part documentary on child trafficking reflect a man committed to exposing darkness, regardless of the personal cost. He has described trafficking as a global epidemic, one that demands immediate action. His passion for the cause has inspired others to join the conversation, including influencers, activists, and even some within the entertainment industry. As the issue gains visibility, the question becomes, what role should Hollywood play? Can an industry built on storytelling become a force for justice? Or is it too entangled in its own secrets to ever truly change? Denzel Washington's call for accountability suggests that change is possible, but it requires more than just words. It demands action, both from those within the industry and from audiences who consume its content. The power of films like Sound of Freedom lies not just in their storytelling, but in their ability to galvanize public opinion. By shining a light on the darkest corners of society, they force us to confront our own complicity. Are we willing to support projects that challenge the status quo, or do we prefer the comfort of ignorance? As Washington and Gibson continue to speak out, their efforts highlight a broader truth. This isn't just about Hollywood. It's about a global system of exploitation that thrives in silence. Their voices, joined by others who refuse to look the other way, are a reminder that change begins with awareness. And awareness starts with asking difficult questions, even when the answers are uncomfortable. The fight against trafficking is not an easy one. It requires courage, persistence, and a willingness to face the harshest realities. But as Sound of Freedom has shown, it's a fight worth fighting. The question now is whether Hollywood and society at large is ready to join it. The power of storytelling lies in its ability to reach beyond the boundaries of entertainment, sparking conversations about the truths we might otherwise ignore. When a film like Sound of Freedom captures public attention, it reminds us that art can be more than a form of escapism. It can be a mirror, reflecting the darkest corners of society. Yet, for all its impact, the film's success and its message have been met with resistance, and that resistance speaks volumes about the forces at play. Mel Gibson has long championed the idea that art should have a purpose, and Sound of Freedom is a testament to that belief. In a world dominated by blockbusters and high-budget spectacles, the film's raw and unflinching portrayal of child trafficking stands out. It doesn't rely on flashy effects or elaborate stunts. Instead, it uses the power of truth to draw its audience in. This isn't just a movie, it's a movement, and Gibson has embraced it wholeheartedly. Denzel Washington, though not directly tied to Sound of Freedom, has also used his platform to advocate for justice and equity. His iconic roles often portray characters who stand up against systemic corruption and fight for the oppressed. Robert McCall from the Equalizer series, for instance, is more than just a fictional hero. He's a symbol of resistance and moral courage. As Washington prepares for the release of The Equalizer 3, the parallels between his on-screen roles and the real-world issues being exposed by films like Sound of Freedom are impossible to ignore. The intersection of these two figures, Gibson and Washington, raises a crucial question. What happens when Hollywood's most influential voices decide to challenge the status quo? The answer is both inspiring and unsettling. On one hand, their advocacy amplifies awareness of critical issues like trafficking and exploitation. On the other hand, it highlights the immense pushback they face from an industry that often prefers silence over disruption. For Gibson, the battle isn't new. His upcoming documentary series on global child trafficking is set to delve deeper into the subject, shedding light on networks that span continents. The project promises to go beyond the surface, exploring the systemic factors that allow trafficking to persist. It's a bold undertaking, one that aligns perfectly with Gibson's long-standing commitment to using art as a tool for change. But the challenges are immense. Hollywood is an industry that thrives on image, and projects like Sound of Freedom or Gibson's documentary risk shattering the carefully curated narratives that have defined it for decades. The reluctance of major studios to support these projects is telling. It's not just about financial risk, it's about the fear of exposing truths that might implicate powerful players within the system. Denzel Washington, while less overt in his critiques, has consistently used his influence to push for accountability. In interviews, he has spoken about the importance of integrity and the responsibility of storytellers to tell the truth. His roles, from Malcolm X to Fences, reflect a commitment to portraying stories that matter, stories that challenge societal norms and inspire change. It's no coincidence that his work resonates so deeply. It's grounded in a philosophy that art should provoke thought, not just provide entertainment. The success of Sound of Freedom has proven that audiences are ready for stories that address uncomfortable truths. The film's rise to prominence, despite significant obstacles, is a testament to the power of persistence and the growing demand for authenticity. It's a shift that has the potential to redefine Hollywood's priorities, but only if the momentum continues. Yet, the resistance remains. Critics of the film argue that its success is being weaponized by conspiracy theorists to push unfounded allegations about Hollywood. Supporters, however, see this backlash as evidence of its importance. After all, why would a film about such a critical issue face so much opposition if it weren't touching a nerve? For Mel Gibson, the answer lies in the systemic nature of the problem. Trafficking isn't just a crime, it's a global enterprise, one that thrives on secrecy and complicity. Hollywood, as a cultural powerhouse, has a role to play in either perpetuating or dismantling these systems. By lending his voice to projects like Sound of Freedom and creating his own documentary series, Gibson is taking a stand that few in his position are willing to take. Denzel Washington's involvement adds another layer of credibility to the conversation. While his approach may be more understated, his influence is undeniable. When Washington speaks about the importance of truth, people listen. When he portrays characters who fight for justice, audiences are inspired. Together, Gibson and Washington represent two sides of the same coin, one bold and unrelenting, the other steady and resolute. Their combined efforts are a reminder that art can be a powerful weapon against injustice. But they also highlight the challenges of fighting an entrenched system. Hollywood is more than an industry, it's a cultural institution, one that wields immense influence over global narratives. Challenging it requires more than just courage. It requires a collective effort. The ripple effects of this movement are already being felt. As more people become aware of the realities of trafficking, the pressure on institutions to address these issues grows. Films like Sound of Freedom are just the beginning. They're a starting point for a much larger conversation, one that demands action from both the industry and society at large. But change is never easy. It comes with resistance, with setbacks, and with the risk of alienating powerful interests. For Gibson and Washington, the journey is far from over. Their advocacy has opened a door, but it's up to the rest of us to walk through it. The fight against trafficking isn't just their fight, it's ours. And as long as voices like theirs continue to speak out, there is hope. For every voice that dares to speak the truth in Hollywood, there seems to be an equally powerful force determined to silence it. This is the reality for those who choose to challenge the status quo in an industry where image is everything. Mel Gibson and Denzel Washington, both celebrated and respected in their own right, are no strangers to the risks involved in speaking out. Their efforts to bring attention to the exploitation and corruption within Hollywood highlight the steep price of challenging an entrenched system. Mel Gibson's journey has been marked by both triumph and controversy. The success of The Passion of the Christ brought him immense acclaim, but also significant backlash. His strong Catholic beliefs and willingness to tackle controversial subjects put him at odds with many in Hollywood. Over the years, Gibson has weathered accusations and scandals, often finding himself ostracized by the very industry that once celebrated him. Yet, he remains undeterred, using his platform to shed light on issues that others shy away from. His unwavering support for Sound of Freedom is a testament to his commitment to justice. The film's narrative aligns with Gibson's outspoken stance against human trafficking, a cause he has described as a global epidemic. But his advocacy goes beyond words. With his upcoming documentary series, Gibson aims to expose the systemic factors that enable trafficking networks to operate with impunity. The project, which promises to delve into trafficking hotbeds around the world, has already drawn both anticipation and skepticism. Critics question whether Hollywood will allow such a bold expose to gain traction, but supporters see it as a necessary step toward accountability. Denzel Washington, while less controversial than Gibson, has also faced resistance in his own way. Known for his integrity and professionalism, Washington has built a reputation as a truth-teller both on and off the screen. His criticism of Hollywood's obsession with identity politics and the performative nature of award shows has not gone unnoticed. While his approach is measured, it carries weight. Washington's words challenge the industry to move beyond superficial gestures and address deeper issues, from systemic inequality to the exploitation of vulnerable populations. The backlash against both men highlights a troubling reality: Hollywood's reluctance to confront its own flaws. For an industry built on storytelling, the reluctance to embrace narratives that expose uncomfortable truths is ironic at best and complicit at worst. This resistance isn't just about protecting reputations. It's about maintaining a system of power that benefits the few at the expense of the many. Critics of Sound of Freedom and similar projects often dismiss them as conspiracy-driven or politically motivated. While some allegations against Hollywood are indeed exaggerated or unfounded, the dismissive attitude toward the film's core message reveals a deeper issue. By labeling such projects as controversial, the industry deflects attention from the very real and documented problem of human trafficking. This tactic not only undermines the work of activists, but also perpetuates a culture of silence. The culture of silence extends beyond the treatment of whistleblowers. It's reflected in the way the industry handles internal misconduct. Over the years, numerous scandals have exposed the exploitation and abuse of actors, particularly women and minors. The Me Too movement brought these issues to the forefront, but it also revealed how deeply rooted they are in Hollywood's structure. For every high-profile case that makes headlines, countless others remain hidden, shielded by non-disclosure agreements and institutional complicity. Mel Gibson's and Denzel Washington's advocacy for transparency challenges this culture head-on. Their willingness to confront the darker side of Hollywood has inspired others to speak out, but it has also made them targets. Gibson, in particular, has faced relentless scrutiny, with some accusing him of using his platform to push personal agendas. Yet his actions suggest otherwise. By championing projects like Sound of Freedom and creating his own investigative work, Gibson has shown that his commitment to justice is not about self-promotion, but about effecting change. Denzel Washington's approach is equally impactful, though less polarizing. His advocacy focuses on the power of truth and the importance of integrity in storytelling. Washington's roles often mirror his real-life values, portraying characters who fight against systemic corruption and stand up for the voiceless. His influence, both as an actor and as a public figure, has the potential to shift narratives and encourage a more critical examination of the industry's role in perpetuating injustice. The stakes are high for both men. Hollywood's power brokers have a long history of marginalizing those who challenge the system, from blacklisting during the McCarthy era to more subtle forms of exclusion. The industry has shown that it values loyalty over accountability. For Gibson and Washington, the choice to speak out is not without risks, yet their efforts highlight the importance of standing firm in the face of adversity. As their voices grow louder, so does the backlash. Social media, a platform that has amplified public awareness, has also become a battleground. Supporters of Gibson and Washington praise their courage, while detractors attempt to discredit their motives. The polarization of public opinion reflects the broader struggle to address issues like trafficking in a way that transcends politics and personal biases. Still, the momentum is undeniable. Films like Sound of Freedom have sparked a global conversation about human trafficking, and the involvement of figures like Gibson and Washington ensures that this conversation continues. Their work challenges Hollywood to confront its own contradictions. How can an industry that prides itself on championing justice and equality turn a blind eye to its own complicity and exploitation? The answer lies in accountability. For change to occur, it must come from within. Gibson's and Washington's advocacy is a reminder that Hollywood has the power to shape not just stories, but societal norms. By supporting projects that expose injustice and amplifying the voices of the marginalized, the industry can become a force for good. But that requires more than just words. It requires action. The road ahead is fraught with challenges, but the stakes are too high to ignore. As Gibson's documentary series prepares to expose the global scope of trafficking and Washington continues to push for integrity in storytelling, the message is clear. Silence is no longer an option. The fight for justice isn't just about exposing the darkness, it's about shining a light on the path forward. The fight for justice often begins with a single spark, but sustaining the flame requires relentless effort and unwavering courage. As Mel Gibson and Denzel Washington continue their advocacy, their message reverberates far beyond Hollywood. They are challenging not just an industry, but a global system of exploitation, secrecy, and complicity. Their efforts remind us that change is possible, but only if we confront the uncomfortable truths that lie at the heart of this battle. Mel Gibson's upcoming documentary series represents a bold step forward in this fight. Unlike the fleeting attention that news headlines often receive, this four-part expose aims to provide a comprehensive look at the global child trafficking crisis. It promises to explore the networks and systems that allow such horrors to persist, highlighting not only the victims, but also the perpetrators and the societal structures that shield them. Gibson's decision to focus on countries like Ukraine, where trafficking has been exacerbated by conflict and instability, underscores the urgency of addressing this issue on a global scale. But the challenges Gibson faces are monumental. Hollywood, like many powerful institutions, is adept at controlling narratives. The industry's reluctance to embrace projects like Sound of Freedom and Gibson's documentary reflects a deeper discomfort with transparency. After all, shining a light on trafficking inevitably raises questions about who benefits from these systems and why so little has been done to dismantle them. Denzel Washington, while less directly involved in the anti-trafficking movement, complements Gibson's efforts by advocating for integrity and truth in storytelling. His roles, particularly as Robert McCall in the Equalizer series, exemplify the power of justice in the face of systemic oppression. With the release of The Equalizer 3, Washington continues to remind audiences of the importance of standing up for the powerless, a message that resonates deeply in the context of the trafficking crisis. The parallels between Washington's fictional characters and Gibson's real-life advocacy are striking. Both challenge the status quo, exposing the flaws in systems that are meant to protect the vulnerable. But their work also highlights a critical question. Can Hollywood, with its immense cultural influence, truly become a force for change? Or is it too entangled in its own interests to address the deeper issues at play? The answer lies, in part, with the audience. Films like Sound of Freedom have demonstrated that there is a growing demand for content that tackles real-world issues with honesty and courage. The film's success, achieved despite significant obstacles, is a testament to the power of public support. When audiences choose to engage with these stories, they send a message to the industry. Authenticity matters, and silence is no longer acceptable. However, the burden of change cannot rest solely on filmmakers and audiences. Governments, NGOs, and global organizations must also step up, using the momentum generated by films like Sound of Freedom to implement real-world solutions. Human trafficking is not just a Hollywood problem. It is a global crisis that requires a coordinated response. Policies must be strengthened, resources allocated, and systems reformed to protect the most vulnerable among us. Mel Gibson's and Denzel Washington's efforts serve as a catalyst for these broader conversations. Their work reminds us that awareness is only the first step. True change requires action, action that challenges entrenched systems of power and prioritizes justice over convenience. The ripple effects of their advocacy are already being felt. Social media campaigns, grassroots movements, and increased public discourse around trafficking are evidence of a growing awareness. But awareness must translate into accountability. The stories told in films like Sound of Freedom and the truths uncovered in Gibson's documentary must inspire real-world change, not just fleeting outrage. For Hollywood, this moment represents both a challenge and an opportunity. The industry has the resources, talent, and global reach to make a significant impact. By supporting projects that expose injustice and amplify marginalized voices, Hollywood can move beyond its reputation as a mere purveyor of entertainment. It can become a platform for change, using its influence to shine a light on the issues that matter most. But this requires courage, the kind of courage demonstrated by Mel Gibson and Denzel Washington. It requires an industry willing to confront its own flaws and take responsibility for its role in shaping cultural narratives. Most importantly, it requires a collective commitment to prioritizing truth over profit. Justice over complacency. The journey ahead is not without its obstacles. Powerful systems do not change easily, and those who challenge them often face significant backlash. But as Gibson and Washington have shown, the fight is worth it. Their voices, joined by countless others, are part of a growing movement that refuses to accept the status quo. In the end, the battle against trafficking and exploitation is not just about exposing the darkness, it's about illuminating the path forward. It's about building a world where justice is not an exception but the norm, where the most vulnerable are protected, and where silence is no longer an option. As the final credits roll on this chapter of their advocacy, one thing is clear: the work is far from over. But with voices like Mel Gibson's and Denzel Washington's leading the way, there is hope that the next chapter will bring us closer to the truth, and closer to a world where justice prevails. With that, we have reached the end of today's video. If you have come that far with us, be sure to check out other videos on the channel.